Today on the Grow Up Level Up Gamers Club, find out who Samson and Jordan are, why we matter to your gaming podcast rotation, what games we think is a 1 out of 10, a 5 out of 10, and a 10 out of 10, and our impressions on Concord and CLICKOLDING. This is the Grow Up Level Up Gamers Club podcast. Let's get in there. If we had a theme song, this is where I'd put it. Hey, Jordan, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. I was going to jump in with the theme song, but you threw it to me too quick, so I guess we'll save that for next time.
Hey, that's just another reason whoever's listening to this podcast has to tune in for next time. But what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Grow Up Level Up Gamers Club podcast. It is a new podcast where myself, Samson, and Sir Dr. JM, also known as Jordan, also just a normal man, we come together and give our recommendations on what games are kind of speaking to us and what games we think are worth your time. So, Jordan, before you introduce yourself, I just want to tell the people out there why they should listen to us. Is that cool with you?
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome. All right. So, yeah, another video game podcast. Do we really need this? I think I'm trying to pitch the difference that we are. Firstly, we're Canadian. I don't know if that matters.
Matters.
I find a lot of gaming podcasts are American and they talk in American prices, but as Canadians, we're like America, but a little different. And it still matters. So we are Canadian. We bring perspectives from a Canadian perspective. I myself are based out of Vancouver. Jordan, I don't know if you want to reveal where you are based out of.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. I'm raised out of Calgary, Alberta, living in Edmonton, Alberta now. So
heck yeah. So Western Canada, but
yeah,
it still counts. And to be frank, this idea for this podcast kind of came up from our conversation, our love for podcasting, but also the point that we are both working people. And in reality, we only have 1, maybe 2 hours a night to play a game. So what ends up happening is we're very selective on our games, and we really want to try new things, but also tell other folks, is this game worth the limited amount of fun time you have at night? This podcast, we're hoping to do week by week. We're hoping to get it done and out on Fridays. So if you're listening to this today, I hope it's Friday and that you are going to take our recommendations into the weekend and enjoy it. So how this show we're thinking to be structured is the first half we'll talk about what we've been playing and our games of the week and our recommendations. And then the second half will be a topic of the show. For this episode, like I said in the intro, we are going to be talking about Concord and CLICKOLDING, plus some other little tidbits. I'm not sure what Jordan has prepared, but I definitely have something I want to show off as well. And in the second half of the show, we're going to be doing our reviews on what we consider a game to be a 1 out of 10, a 5 out of 10, and a 10 out of 10. So we're going to share kind of what games we put into those categories. So you as a listener kind of get to know us as well. I kind of have a hot take. I was teasing Jordan for it earlier, so I hope he's ready.
Mm-hmm. I can't wait. Honestly, it was a lot of fun. I've in my past, being obviously not actually a part of games media or anything like that, I've casually thought about, I'd give this game a 5, a 6, a 7, whatever. But I've never put as much thought into it as I did today when I kind of went through my back catalog and was like, yeah, that game didn't really click with me, or you know what, I'd probably rank that game pretty high. So I'm excited to get into it.
Excellent. Before we get into our topics of the show, let's do a little bit of introduction. If you're listening to this on the Grow Up Level Up podcast feed or YouTube channel, you might already know who I am, but if you don't, my name is Samson. I've been playing video games for 20-something years, as long as I can hold a controller. And growing up, I really loved video games, but I wasn't allowed to buy them. My parents weren't fans of video games. So now as an adult, I end up buying way too many video games. I'm the classic Steam library is way too big story. So I like playing a lot of video games. I love listening to games media, particularly Kind of Funny. It's a huge influence on my consumption. But I just love to try a little bit of everything, if that makes sense. So that's kind of where I'm at as a person. I'm also a full-time worker. I work in a job completely unrelated to games, work with families in the British Columbia, Vancouver region. So video games are kind of an escape for me. At the same time, I've used video games as a relationship builder for a lot of the families and kids I work with. So that is kind of how video games not only are a way for me to relax and unwind at the end of the day, and a way to appreciate this really cool art form, but it's also a tool and a way for me to be better at my job. So that's why I hold games and gaming and fun, more or less, really highly in my life.
Fair enough. That's a little bit deeper than my introduction probably will be. I can't say that I work with families or anything like that much, but no, my gaming history kind of stems from my childhood. Definitely, my parents were always big on sort of, I guess, being into whatever you're into, right? They never really pushed much on me, to, somewhat to a detriment. I always bugged them for not putting me in sports because I have a feeling that I could have been good, but I started playing soccer when I was in my early 20s, and I really, really loved it. And I always kind of felt like, man, I wish I had done this when I was younger and kind of grew up with it. But regardless, that's not what this is about. This is about video games. So my dad was always into games to an extent, and kind of as they got more advanced, I think he just fell off. So like I remember a copy of Doom 2 that we had on floppy disk. I think it was actually 2 floppies. And I remember seeing him play that, but obviously that was a pretty violent game for when I was a child. So, I remember the chainsaw, but not actually cutting anyone until I was much, much older, playing it emulated and stuff like that. So anyways, grew up with originally Sega Genesis, and then ColecoVision. And that was kind of my first experience, but it kind of, I think, fostered a love of video games in me, regardless of if I knew it at the time. And from there, I kind of got on board with Sony at some point or another, dabbled in Nintendo. I've dabbled in PC gaming. I fell into the World of Warcraft hole long ago, climbed out since. But in any case, I've got a fair amount of experience across, a number of different platforms as well. And in real life, I work in the IT industry, so it's arguably gaming adjacent, technology related kind of thing. So it's not uncommon for the people that I work with to have experience gaming as well. And everyone's got their opinions, and it's always fun to relate with people that way. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That's a really interesting perspective. Like when you have colleagues that aren't in games, but they treat games as their hobby. Just growing up, like a lot of my jobs were in that childcare, working with families, social work kind of area. So a lot of my coworkers were women, and I'm generalizing because there are a lot of women in games, but the women that work those jobs aren't necessarily playing video games. So when I did my short stint at a tech accelerator, I was like, oh, my coworkers, like we're sharing Valorant clips with each other. We go to the video game trivia. So that was kind of a perspective shift for me. It was a cool experience, I guess, more or less.
Yeah, fair enough.
What is your favorite console growing up? You said you fell into Sony, but was there anything else around that, or a specific PlayStation?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, like I say, I started with the Genesis. That would have been my dad's. I remember, well, actually, I still have my cartridge of Sonic 2. I grew up with Sonic, really. But also, like, some of my earliest memories playing video games were there was this Sesame Street restaurant game that I had on Genesis. And I remember that game so vividly. Like, I can hear the noises that I wish I could remember who you played as, but I can picture him. Now. Yeah, but I can hear the noises he would make, and he would go up to place an order at this one guy, and the guy would go, "I'd like 2 hamburgers," and you'd go search around this level and collect hamburger parts for him and that kind of thing. But anyways, that was where I started. That was the earliest, gaming exposure I had. And then I think it was Dad was cleaning out his parents' house at some point or another, and he found his old ColecoVision, which a lot of people, you say Coleco and they don't know what that is, right? It's hard for a lot of people to picture. It was a pretty atrocious system, to be honest with you. These god-awful controllers that had a full-on number pad or keypad, and then the controllers tucked into the system, which is a neat idea, but man, early days of gaming. So anyways, played, Pac-Man knockoffs on that, and racing, early racing games on that. So those are things that are kind of, to me, very, very special memories, in that they're some of my earliest memories just in general, right? And of course, they're centered around gaming. And then it wasn't until I started grade school, and I remember I went to my friend Mitchell's house after school to be babysat, and they had a PlayStation 1, and that was kind of where I fell in love with Crash and Spyro and all the mascots. So yeah, that's what it was for me. What were your earliest games that you remember?
So growing up, like, we've encountered a lot of video games at a lot of like friends and family friends' houses, but we never had our own, because like it was me and my 2 younger brothers, so 3 kids. As an adult, I get it now. Like, our family probably didn't have too much money, but I want to say our first home console we got in the States, and it was a GameCube.
Really?
And at that time, it was like a Christmas present, so we all splurged. Like, we got Double Dash and Smash Melee. So
what a way to
we had it good. We had it good between the 3 of us, and I think my parents got that because it's like it was a multiplayer system. The 3 of us can play it at the same time.
Totally.
So we really had like good times around that. So the GameCube holds a special place in my heart, along with the Game Boy SP.
Oh, sure.
I think was our first Game Boy, and then into the DS. By that time, I was like a little older. I bought mine a couple of years later. Like, I worked odd jobs as a teen and able to get my DS, and that kind of encapsulated the whole adolescence of video games. And there was allegedly something called an R4 on the DS,
R4.
and that also allowed me to try a lot to and
played a lot of games you might have missed out on.
Yeah, exactly. And allegedly.
Allegedly. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So that was kind of like what I really resonated with, was like being able to try a bunch of things. At that time, I for some reason I still didn't feel like I wanted to make games. I just wanted to play them. And then there was like, I was following Kotaku and IGN and all that around that time too, but I also felt like I never wanted to write in games or write about games. I wasn't that good of a student. And then this podcasting thing blew up, and now we're here.
Fair enough. Touching on your allegedly, you reminded me of once I got into the PlayStation, and I think I must have been in grade 1 or 2. I went over to a friend's house, and it was the big thing was like he had a lot of PlayStation games, and I was like, okay, let's see this collection of PlayStation games. We go to his house, and like his parents had like a CD rack that you would have put physical CDs in, and it was all these empty like blank CD cases with a not official CD disc with the name of the game written in Sharpie on the disc.
Yeah,
and his dad knew where to get them, and that's all I ever knew. But this kid must have had every PS1 game.
Wow.
Because they were just burned, right? Somehow he was burning these games onto the discs. And yeah, it was funny for me because I remember at the time being like, that's not the cover of Crash. Like, Crash has a picture of the Bandicoot on it, not just handwritten Crash on it. And I remember feeling like weird about it and being like, is this okay? Like, how does this work? And
yeah, no. While we're in this rabbit hole, like, that is similar experience here. I don't know about Calgary, but in Vancouver we have like a big Asian population, so you have big malls. And I'm not trying to stereotype. I'm just noticing a pattern.
Yeah.
There are certain stores where you go into these Asian malls where there's one store that is like a guy, and his whole thing is modding consoles and selling these blank discs with Sharpies written on them. And like
that's funny.
It really was the Wild West back then.
It's true. I mean, like, I've never looked into it, but I do wonder, like, what measures did they have against piracy, right? Because the compact disc, the literal CD, was a relatively new technology, and it, video games have a habit of pushing technologies forward and everything. So it wouldn't surprise me if video games were a big driver behind anti-piracy and stuff like that, because it was probably pretty bad when something like the PlayStation 1 first exploded. So
totally. Yeah. Moving on from piracy, and
piracy's bad.
And
don't pirate games now.
Yeah, don't pirate games. Like, that is kind of why I want to like my own money and my own job, is because I can buy my games now. I can respect the people who make them, and even though it's flawed, like, I'm part of the process of getting games correctly, legally.
Mhm.
I want to go into a little bit. I put this section as game news, but it's more like personal game news. And really, I only have 1 point. So a couple weeks ago, no, not even, like a couple days ago, friend of the show, Lucas Gates, retweeted something. Let me try to find a tweet. But essentially, it was a tweet from the Pokemon company saying, hey, we are going to be hosting an NBA in Seattle between the Portland. Oh man, see, I'm also not an NBA follower.
I was gonna say you're talking to the wrong person here.
Yeah. But anyways, between two NBA teams, I don't know what either. Oh, the Clippers and the Trailblazers. So
it was on the tip of my tongue. I just read out it.
I am not a fan of either of these teams, but I am a fan of going down to Seattle, and I am a fan of just watching live sports. So I bought my ticket. Oh, and I'm a huge fan of Pokemon. I don't know if
of course that goes without saying.
Yeah. So I got my ticket, and I'm going to go to Seattle in October.
Nice.
And watch my first NBA game. Well, first NBA game sponsored by Pokemon, and like,
hey, what the heck does that mean? Like, what would?
So
are they going to be dressed? One's going to be dressed in gold, and the other's going to be in silver. And
oh, that'd be cool. That'd be cool. Way too good. Okay, so there's like this thing I've been noticing with sports teams. Two of note. I think there was one. It was a baseball team. I forget which one in the States, but they had a Hello Kitty night, and then all it was is like Hello Kitty was dressed in baseball gear, like signs everywhere. You could buy like a Hello Kitty plushie in baseball gear. There's like,
I'd be so down.
Yeah, there's like people in or the costume folks in the Hello Kitty costume. So it's just a themed night.
That's cool.
And then a similar thing happened a couple of weeks ago. I think it was the Dodgers, so LA, and they had a HoloLive theme night. I don't know if you know HoloLive. Yeah, it's like VTubers and like very anime. So but it's like, what does anime have to do with American baseball? But I think they picked that weekend because it was Anime Expo in LA. Sure. So there was a lot of folks that were there for Anime Expo and ended up going to this baseball game. Yeah. So I think they're starting to try these weird IP crossovers to pull in folks, and it worked for me. Like I don't know what Pokemon thing they'll do there, but if I get Pikachu wearing a jersey, I'm happy enough.
That'd be amazing. That'd be really cool. I dig it.
Do you have any cool gaming news or stories from the week?
No, I mean, honestly, I follow the gaming news pretty closely. You know, I listen to a number of gaming news related podcasts and things like that. One thing we didn't mention at the top of the show is I'll say previously ran my own Overwatch podcast, so I'm pretty ingrained in that ecosystem. So of course there was a new character just announced just today, I believe, actually just earlier this morning. Juno, the Space Ranger character, finally unveiled. So that's always exciting to see a new character. And I mean, I've largely fallen off Overwatch in recent months, but this will definitely get me to come back and at least, you know, try out the new character and just see how they play. Because certainly it looks like a fun character. Honestly, it looks like kind of a Lucio Tracer mix. So.
Yeah, I'm sure this won't be the last time we bring up Overwatch because, one, it's kind of how we met through the Overwatch League community, and two, it does hold a special place in my heart because I really feel like there isn't anything out there like it that's just so quick, bright, colorful, positive message, competitive at the same time. And I'm sure it'll come up. But yes, I did see Juno today. Looks like I didn't look too deep into what the kit is yet, but hey, there's a trial weekend this weekend. Maybe we'll talk about her at next week's show.
Oh, shoot. You're right. And I mean, in other news that we're going to talk about, Concord's open betas this weekend as well. Beta number 2. So
that is my plans after this episode. I'm going to hop right into Cord and get conkin.
That's what they call it now, I guess. Get conkin.
Yeah, I'm a concorder. Why don't we transition into our game recommendations and impressions for the week? One of the topics that we talked about while prepping the show was you got into the Concord closed beta last week. So, Jordan, why don't you take it away? How was Concord?
Yeah, so I mean,
and maybe explain what Concord is real quick for those listening.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, the interesting thing was I was on Instagram late one night last week, and I noticed that Scott Lowe, who works for Firewalk Studios, of course, the studio behind Concord, just basically posted, hey, if you want into the Concord beta, drop me a DM and I'll send you a code. Now, what I hadn't realized is earlier that week, they announced that anyone with PlayStation Plus was actually also got access. So I already had access technically.
Whoa.
So sorry if I stole a code from someone. I didn't know that though. But he sent me the code. I downloaded the beta and I jumped in. So Concord, for those who don't know, is sort of PlayStation, because Firewalk Studios is partnered with PlayStation right now. So it's sort of PlayStation's take on the hero shooter. So when I say hero shooter, think Overwatch a little bit, think a little bit of Apex, a little bit of Valorant, these kind of games where it's focused on not so much a Call of Duty where every character is, shooting guns and the difference between each player is simply the gun they've chosen, right? It's more about the abilities that each individual character you can pick from brings to the table. Yes, they all have a different gun or weapon as well, but they have these abilities that kind of make the characters unique. I believe in the beta they had 2 different modes. One was team deathmatch, so I think it was 6v6, 5v5, something like that. And then the other one was more of a search and destroy where, one team grabs the bomb, plants it, the other team has to either eliminate everyone on the opposing team or defuse the bomb before it goes off, kind of thing. I actually stuck to the team deathmatch mode because I was more just trying to get a feel for the gameplay and the characters than anything. I trust that pretty much any of these first-person shooter companies these days can make a decent search and destroy. Like the template is there, they all just basically copy paste and apply, their characters and abilities to it. So, but yeah, so diving in, would be shocked to hear anyone say that their very first impression of the game is that it's ugly. Like this, I'd be shocked to hear that because it is beautiful. Whatever that PlayStation magic is, they just, they've got it for making these character models and everything. The sort of shtick behind Concord, of course, when it was first announced or first unveiled was, it's, a Guardians of the Galaxy knockoff. And that's, you still get a little bit of that flavor. It definitely has that kind of 70s low-tech sci-fi behind it, but it looks really cool. They've for all the Guardians of the Galaxy comparisons, they have found a style for them and they settled on it and they really went all in on it. When there's these sort of scenes where you start a match and your ship flies in, and I think, in essence, it's simulating you're dropping off your team at the battle station, but there's these trails that are like all rainbow colored and just pretty. It's a pretty game. And then you look at the character models and like insane detail on some of them. It's really beautiful. So anyways, getting into the game, it's a lot. There's a lot of different layers to it, which I think it could be a symptom of it being a beta. I'm curious to see if they changed anything from last week to this week, because they certainly don't throw everything at you, but they also make it feel like there's a lot of information there and you just don't really know what you're looking at or what you're reading into. Now, yes, there's a help menu that you can go through all these menus and all these different options to read about, well, okay, what's my crew? Okay, what's a free runner? What's this setting and that setting? And what happens with these backups and all these different terms. But the point is, there's a lot there. And when you compare it to a game like Overwatch or even Valorant, Apex Legends to an extent, I think they do a better job of presenting, here's what you need to know to play the game. Now, you jump into Concord, you can pick a character, you can play the game if you have any experience with first-person shooters, right? But the difference is, you jump into Overwatch and you jump into a match, you can see very clearly, these are your tankier, beefier characters who are going to, have a larger health pool, move slower, hit harder, that kind of thing. These are your characters that, are DPS, they do damage, they move a little quicker, they have a smaller health pool. And these are your support characters, they have healing abilities, and things like that, right? So I think that's kind of one of the biggest problems that Concord is going to have is it's the user onboarding experience and how it differentiates a lot of these things, because there are so many things going on here. And that's the thing. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are once you get in there, because I heard this on a couple other podcasts as well. They were the Giant Bombcast in particular. They were talking about the fact that they were literally on the show Googling certain things that they came across in the game. That the only reason I knew what they were is from listening to the Kind of Funny podcast and hearing some of the stuff that Andy had dove into. It kind of demonstrated to me, like, unless you're really willing to dig into these systems and everything and read about them and that kind of thing, it wasn't just me that was like, ooh, there's a lot going on here.
Okay. Now, so it sounds like there's like, yeah, like, I kind of want to push back on that, because I know if I were to bring in a friend, and I haven't played Concord yet, to be clear, if I were to bring like a friend into Overwatch 2 now and say like, hey, this is the game, there's 40 heroes, but you know, Ursa's javelin can get blocked by shield, so you don't want to shield that. Junkrat actually can't headshot. Like, there's those little nuances that we grow to know because we've been growing with the game. So I wonder if it's a symptom of that we just don't know the game well enough yet. But at the same time, it does sound like there's lots of depth and nuance and a high learning skill ceiling, which actually makes me excited. And I know that doesn't always excite a bunch of people, but for me, like, I'm looking forward to diving into that. But I'm also just a sucker for hero shooters. I love trying each one. And
that's the thing for me. Totally am as well. Like, when Apex first came out, I jumped into that, and you know, it got a little farther down the battle royale rabbit hole than I wanted to be, so I kind of dipped out of that. But I agree. I love really solid characters and anything that can draw you in that sense. And you know, even further to sort of the point I was making, like, looking at the character select screen, I think in a game like Overwatch, it's easy to select a character and you can see just from the UI very easily, okay, now how do I check their abilities? Even before you select a character, how do I bring up the screen where I can just read their abilities? What is the R1 button? I mean, I play on console, so what does the R1 button do? What does the R2 button do? Primary fire, secondary fire, et cetera, et cetera. And that was a struggle in Concord. So there were little things like that where it was like, okay, just how do I do something simple? Like, I'm looking at a character, I want to know what their abilities are.
Right.
There were also some minor bugs where you would go from character to character and all the abilities and everything would stay the same. And it took me a minute to realize it was a bug. So if you backed out of the menu, then went back in, it would suddenly work and you could see them all. So just in case you have that experience. But,
sure, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, aside from that, like I say, there's a lot there, but the gameplay was fun. I did find I was enjoying sort of, it feels more shooter than an Overwatch. Obviously, you know, every character has a gun, which in Overwatch they don't. But, you know, in Valorant and Apex they do. It was more shooter than an Overwatch. It wasn't as far as probably a Valorant, because I find Valorant leans more toward the Counter-Strike side of things, which Counter-Strike is hardcore shooter, if you ask me at least. So I really enjoyed that. And the movement was kind of one of the things that really sets it apart. It really reminded me of vanilla Destiny, old school Halo in sort of the jumping and dodging abilities, kind of that floatiness, which makes sense because I think Concord, Firewalk Studios, the developers, are a lot of ex-Bungie people.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah.
And that really, I really felt that from the second I got in a match and just started jumping around. And a lot of the characters have a double jump. Some of them have a triple jump, and it feels good. Like, that's the thing, is the movement and those abilities. I really felt good to play. The gunplay as well. I've heard both sides of it from other podcasts. I thought the gunplay felt good, and I really liked that. So really for me, it kind of came down to, like, I want to know what the actual onboarding experience is going to be like. Are they going to be able to communicate all these systems they have at play and how they layer on top of each other and how they build upon each other to a brand new player? And especially to someone who's not so well versed in hero shooters or just shooters in general, right? Now, maybe that's not something they're really too worried about, because it is a, and I use this term in American dollars, but a $40 game. It's not a free-to-play game like Overwatch, like Apex, like I think Valorant is free, and especially
Valorant is free. Yeah.
So it's not free to play. So I do wonder if they're even concerned about that, right? Are they maybe thinking, okay, people who are buying this are willing to get in. People who are buying this want to get into the systems, want to get into the nitty gritty and really see how it stacks up. So I do wonder if that's a concern of theirs or not. But yeah, I'm excited to jump back in. And I think that's praise that they probably want, right?
Yeah.
They wanted people to be excited by the first beta, jump into the second beta, and hopefully that builds some steam going into the full release.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, that's kind of where I'm at, is like, I can go on Steam right now and play Overwatch. I can play Apex. I have Valorant. I have all these hero shooters and Fortnite as well. Like to play if I wanted to shoot something in a thing, and it's free. What sets Concord apart? And it sounds like it feels good, which is like
it does.
It sounds like it's a given, but there are some shooters that don't feel that snappy and that good. So that's a great thing. And then it sounds like you were saying, like the price point is, or there is a price point, but it also, in exchange of that, you get a really in-depth. I don't want to use complicated. You get a very deep system to learn and to grow with. Plus, like I assume you paid $50 for us Canadians.
True.
You pay that, and then you get it. You get all the updates free, and you don't have to worry about being microtransactioned. Like, yes, Overwatch 2 is free, but I have bought every battle pass, and we're on season 10 or something. So I spent like $100 something already. 12. Yeah.
We're in 11. 12 starts August 20th, a month from now. So
dang. Okay. Yeah. So I'll probably end up getting that battle pass. So they just nickel and dime. It's like a different value. But yeah, no, I'm excited to try it. I'm excited to be convinced to end up getting it, and then to convince my friends to also get it and play it. Actually, is there cross play for Concord? Do you know?
There is. Yeah.
Oh,
and that's why I was just getting wrecked on the weekend because so the last weekend being PlayStation Plus members, it was originally only people who had pre-ordered the game, and then they opened it up to PlayStation Plus members as well. I think probably because pre-orders weren't high enough. I'm sure they were good, but they weren't high enough. So that's, I think, a big reason why they opened it up. But it was pretty clear by how much I was being beaten into the ground. Because,
some mouse and keyboarders in there.
I don't care which side of the console wars you fall on. Mouse and keyboard is just always going to be more accurate and more precise, right?
Yeah.
It's just how it controls. And I was
getting into like the niche conversation here. I think like most 90%, I want to say, of all competitive Apex Legends players are controller players, because the aim assist is a lot better.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, I know like the Call of Duty League they play entirely on controllers, right? They do not play mouse and keyboard. Yeah. And I think that almost comes a lot from like when the original Modern Warfare Call of Duty 4 got really big. It was on console. It was because of consoles that it became big, right?
Yeah.
So anyways,
and
history lesson.
Depends on the game kind of thing. It's it's hard to play Valorant on controller for me, anyways. I'm just a bad controller shooter. Any closing thoughts on Concord before I hop in tonight?
No, I'm excited to get back in. I'm excited to see. One thing I kind of thought of was like, I think one thing it's lacking that I'm curious if they kind of build up more through the story mode, because of course, or through the story that they're delivering, because they've been big on delivering a story. I want to understand how these characters sort of tie into one another. Because I do think to an extent you can look at an Overwatch, you can look at a Apex, Valorant, and you can kind of see how some of these characters are related to one another, or like
they have those voice lines before matches, and they'll talk and banter. Yeah,
exactly. And you get an idea of a relationship, and even just looking at some of them, you can tell, oh, these guys are, these are the bad guys. These are the good guys. These are the whatever, the junkers or whatever. And I didn't really get that from any of just the visuals behind the characters in Concord. So I do want to see that and see how that plays out. So anyways.
Cool. Would you recommend a listener to try this game out this weekend?
Absolutely. I think if you like shooters, if you like hero shooters, and if, sometimes you just get that itch to, honestly, in a virtual world, fire a gun. For me, sometimes, and I think it's because when I really kind of got into gaming in a more serious way, it was Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, which I talked about a little bit earlier. And so sometimes I just get it under my skin. I just want to go, shoot some guys in the head. And Overwatch doesn't always satisfy that, I think, because, I don't know, it is so much more team play focused, I think. Sometimes I just want to hop into team deathmatch. And even in team deathmatch and Overwatch, it's not the same, right?
Yeah.
And I think it really kind of scratched that itch for me. So if you like shooting people, if you like in a virtual world, of course, if you like hero shooters, get in there, give it a try. If you like Destiny, Halo, give it a try.
Excellent. You're speaking right to me. All right. I got 2 quick game recommendations for your weekend. First one is called CLICKOLDING. We're moving into the PG-13 conversation.
Xavier Nelson.
Yeah. How do you pronounce it?
Xalavier Nelson.
Xalavier Nelson Jr.
Yes,
They
Jr.
put out this game called CLICKOLDING, but the logo looks like cuckolding. And
Yes.
if you don't know what cuckolding is, Google it.
Google it, but not on a work computer.
Yeah. Maybe use a VPN. But it's such a weird game because the game is you in first person pressing a clicker, like those counters with the number on them, and it goes up. The weird thing is across from you is this really creepy guy in a creepy mask telling you to keep clicking in a way that is similar to cuckolding, if that makes sense.
In an intimate way.
Yeah, it's very intimate. There's not much room you can move. I don't want to say too much more than that because it is extremely short, like under an hour. So I beat it in one night. I'm sure if I go back, there's like a secret ending. I'm sure if I click a certain way or to a certain number,
you click it hard or you click it too light,
fast, slow,
like
I'm sure there's something there. But it is such like a weird game and art project with a decent production quality that I just want to recommend it because it's so different and short, and it was like $3.50 Canadian, so which is like $2 or something American. So CLICKOLDING, if you want a weird time, it's not scary, or it is a little scary, but it's not like disgusting scary like Resident Evil. But it does deal with very mature themes, so make sure you're ready for that.
Are there jump scares?
No, I wouldn't say there are. Yeah,
I won't do.
Wink.
I'm all for a good atmosphere. I'm all for tension, but I am not big on jump scares. So
yeah. Sorry for the spoilers, but like there is not really much of like jump scares, which is something that I'm sensitive towards.
I'm glad.
So I check that.
Yeah.
My second game recommendation is actually not a video game. It is a card game that just came out, or it was on Kickstarter. It just got delivered, and it is. I'll see if I can pull it up here. It is called Reforest. The cards look like this. I'm actually going to back away from the mic so I can grab the actual box because for some reason I put it in a different box. So Jordan, please stall for 10 seconds.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, Samson's doing that. I'll just mention my recent dabbling into a game called Townscaper, which has been out for a couple of years. It's on iOS and Steam, and it's not an actual game with any point to it. It's just you're presented sort of a grid in the ocean, and you literally tap to build a building, or you tap and hold on that spot to delete the building, and it's a lot of fun. Go check it out. It's I think like $6 or $7 on iOS at least. So.
Yeah, we do like our clicking games, apparently.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, this is kind of what the packaging looks like. Reforest.
Very nice.
Made by Firestarter Games, which is actually a friend of mine, Sebastian Bernier Wong. He designs games, not for a living, but he has come out with a couple games. And Reforest, this is his latest one. It is all based on plants in the Pacific Northwest. So he called it a sneaky teach. You can actually check out his episode of Grow Up Level Up. He called it a sneaky teach, where as you play, you actually learn a little bit about the plants, what they're called, and how they work. And he incorporates that learning and theming into the game. So the game, I've only played it the solitaire mode, which is the single player mode, but you can also play with folks. And your goal is to earn as many points as you can by planting plants in a specific order, finding your combos, making sure they're planted in the right areas, like a low level, mid level, and high altitude level. And the game is just like I played a couple rounds solitaire, and the fact that I keep playing a couple rounds solitaire because I keep discovering new combos I can do with certain plants. Like, for example, like there's a Pacific Willow. Oh, by the way, it's got like great art by a couple different artists. The Pacific Willow, if you plant it in a lower altitude, it actually scores more points because I guess in real life, they just grow better at lower altitudes. There's like one with if you plant all the ferns beside each other, they all like combo off each other because ferns, same species of plants. They talk to each other good.
Very cool.
But yeah, Reforest, I think you can find it on Firestarter Games' website. I believe it's just firestarter.games. I'll put a link in the description. But it is a pretty cool concept. Like Sebastian and I worked at summer camp together many, many years ago. He loves teaching about nature. He works in nature. So bringing that knowledge to a game that's accessible to folks who maybe aren't even from the Pacific Northwest, and now you're learning about all these different kinds of plants. I think it's really impressive. And most importantly, it's like fun. If you like games like Wingspan, that's a big box board game, but that's also a similar idea where you're engine building and learning about birds at the same time. You might like Reforce, so check it out.
Nice. This is neat. I'm on their website. It's very cool. And you're right. The art is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Check out Reforest. Check out CLICKOLDING. Check out Concord. Now we're moving on to our topic of the show. I think it will get... I hope I don't alienate half our audience in the first episode. But our topic of the show is, I'm going to call it Samson and Jordan's Gaming Tastes, abbreviated. How it's going to work is, in our minds, we have picked 3 games. One game that we consider a 1 out of 10. One game that we consider a 5 out of 10, so like middle. And one game we consider a 10 out of 10, so like maybe not perfect, but in our tastes, it's like masterpiece. Jordan, would you like to start, or should I start with one?
Why don't you start?
All right.
And you'll set the tone, and and you get to decide, I guess. Do we start at the 1 or do we start at the 10?
I've been thinking about this all day. I think we start in the middle, and then we'll go 5, 10, and 1.
Okay.
Is that okay with you?
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
My 5 out of 10 game, and it is not the first time I have shared this. My 5 out of 10 game is God of War Ragnarok.
How dare you?
So
I somehow stumbled across this the other day on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I just shook my head, and I almost commented on it, and then I noticed you had posted it like months ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, how am I even seeing this
now you can air your grievances here, but let me justify. So, 5 out of 10 like doesn't mean it's a bad game. It just wasn't anything like amazing. Realistically, it's probably more than a 5 out of 10 if I want to be objective about it. But since this is a purely subjective topic, I'm gonna stick by it. And the reason why is I actually really like all the God of War games. I liked even the ones from PlayStation 2, and I think I played the one on PSP most, the Chains of Olympus, I think. Ghost of Sparta, one of them.
Yeah, that's 2 of them on PSP.
Right. Yeah, I played both of those the most. I really liked God of War 2018. I thought it was so impressive. But then God of War Ragnarok, it took me 2 years to finish. I just felt like I was just pushing. It felt like a walking sim. I felt like I was pushing forward, fighting the thing. I did Golden Path it because I think I
was gonna say, so you're a yak hater, eh? You hated that part.
No yapping. I just felt like I was just fighting a horde of wave all the way till the end. I did Golden Path it. Something about the world just didn't speak to me the second time, and I wanted to know more about the story. At the same time, the story kind of ended on a flat note for me. I was expecting like God of War 3. You rode into battle on Gaia. Kratos is yelling at Zeus from up the mountain. You're like, all right, here we go, big showdown. And then that just never happened in Ragnarok. And at the same time, I felt like it didn't have the emotional depth that the first one had. I think this is just a thing with sequels. Like, they have to one up themselves, so they introduce more characters, more themes, more side stories. When all I really wanted was like that Kratos and Atreus relationship, and to explore what that's like. But at the same time, presentation really good. The systems were really good. Graphics, sound, everything was obviously top tier. I just didn't really like how long it was, how the story went. And it just didn't hook me the first one like the first one did. So
what would you rate 2018 then? Would you give 2018 the 10?
I'd give it a 9 out of 10. I think we just needed a little more enemy variety, but I found that one a lot tighter, and like the story was a lot like easier to follow, and the ending, I thought the ending ended in a really interesting place, because it felt like the story was not finished, which was intentional, but it was like one door closed while another opened for more stories. Like not everything ended in a nice little silver gold bow, whichever, a nice bow. So I like 2018 a lot more. Just because of the story, I guess. Yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, for me personally, I couldn't disagree more. I do think that 2018 gets the edge. To me, I think 2018 probably would be a 10. I do think that everything felt so purposeful in 2018. It really felt like there was a very clear vision. And I think that kind of comes back to the whole, single camera shot. The camera's one camera angle through the whole game.
That is impressive. That is something I always marveled at.
I think the way they did that in 2018 really kind of tied it all together and made it all feel so seamless. And like I say, so purposeful. Everything felt like it had a reason for being. And a reason for doing what it did, and characters saying what they said and playing the way it played and everything. And then it felt like they kind of lost that in Ragnarok. So I do agree that I don't think Ragnarok was quite as good as 2018. And I think when you think back on what are big moments that I remember between those two games, I think most of what most people remember is probably from 2018. So I think there were some things that they changed that were kind of like, I get why you changed it because you want it to be different than 2018. But the system was kind of better in 2018. So anyways, I get it, but I disagree.
That's fair. That's the 5 is like, you can go either way, right? What's your 5 out of 10, Jordan?
My 5 out of 10. So I wrote down a couple here to show a little bit of variety in the games that I play. One that came to mind is a throwback to the PS3 days. It's called Nobby Nobby Boy. It's a game by, are you familiar?
That sounds really familiar. Is he like a big worm kind of thing? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, go on.
You play essentially as a large worm that eats a lot of stuff and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And there's this whole metagame about like getting so long and so big across every person playing it that you were like stretching out to Mars or something like that. And I don't really remember. It's by, and I'm going to butcher the name a little bit, Keita Takahashi, who's the creator of Katamari. And I love Katamari. Yeah. And it was, I think, as a follow-up to Katamari, it was just disappointing. But it was one of those games that is less of a game and more of an experience, if you will. So because of that, I'm calling this my 5 out of 10 honorable mention.
Cool.
But it's kind of a strange and hilarious shout out because I don't know many people that really played Nobby Nobby Boy like I did. I tried to love it. I really did. But
you said it was on PS3, right?
It was on PS3. I don't know if it's ever come to anything else either.
Okay.
So it's kind of landlocked there too. But
vaguely remember that. Yeah.
And I guess one thing I should mention too is, for me, I kind of hold 5 out of 10 as a mediocre game. And the difference between a 5 and a 4, where I say 4 is kind of a meh, is that 5 I would play for some reason other than the game itself. So maybe I'm playing it with someone and I'm enjoying that. Maybe maybe it's a time waster. Honestly, I'm doing something else and I'm playing it kind of in the background. Whereas a 4 is something that I don't really enjoy. I'll play it for some other reason. Maybe the people I'm playing with, maybe, I don't know. Again, the people I'm playing with, but I'm not really enjoying myself. Whereas with a 5, a mediocre, I get enjoyment out of the experience, but not necessarily the game. And I think that's kind of where the metagame came in, is at the time I wanted to see where it went. So I played it and I tried to play it more. And then eventually it just kind of fell off. So anyways, the game I actually want to go with for my 5 out of 10 is probably going to be one that people don't agree with. And I think it's more of a genre thing for me, and it's Hotline Miami.
Okay. Yeah.
I know a lot of people that are really big on Hotline Miami, and they really kind of enjoyed that sort of arcadey style, the quick action, the really fast paced, if you haven't played Hotline Miami, it's kind of a top down, very stylized, very colorful twin stick shooter, I guess. So you control with the left, I think it was on PlayStation Vita
I think it's on
or
everything
PS3.
now, yeah.
It might be on everything now, but control your character with the left analog stick and push the right analog stick in a direction to fire in that direction. And it was, I think when it came out, known for being brutal, right? You walk into a room, you get hit twice and you die and you start over, and it kind of gets in that roguelite cycle. Now, I don't think it was roguelite in the sense that you were getting better and better and building up skills. I think it was just, that was the progression. And I think maybe it was a case of expectation, for I just heard so much good about it that when I tried it out, I was kind of like, I get it. It's punishing. I get it. You walk around a corner and you're not expecting a guy there and he shoots you and you're dead and you got to do the whole level over again. And it didn't really vibe with me. I can appreciate that the colors were nice. The art was nice. But for me, something that, like I say, I might throw it on while I'm watching a show or something just to keep my hands busy, but I just wasn't super into it. So that's a 5 out of 10 for me.
Well, that's a good. I feel I can agree with that. I actually never played Hotline Miami, but I'll put it on my 2 playlist.
Yeah, fair enough.
With everything else. Shall we do our 10 out of 10s?
Yeah.
My 10 out of 10 might be a game you might not have heard of. It is a very niche game, but for some reason I just keep going back to it. Not every day,
Overwatch
maybe like every
2.
month. That I actually considered, but I think that's the easy answer for folks who know me. My 10 out of 10 is a game called Peglin by Red Nexus Games.
Oh.
Peglin is a pachinko roguelite. And in this game, you play as a little green goblin, I assume, because his name is Peglin. And you go through levels in combat by dropping a ball into like a pachinko map similar to Peggle. And as you knock things, you build up damage.
Things happen.
And you build up damage and you attack your enemy. It goes into more depth like that. You can target enemies. As you go through the levels, you can pick upgrades on your balls. You can upgrade or I think they're called orbs. You can upgrade your orbs, build combos, like change your board. So, and also get items that like change your run, help you heal, like the basic roguelite stuff. But for Peglin, I just keep going back to this game because it's one of those games you can play with one hand. So, after a long day at work, you're tired, you don't want to play Concord or Overwatch or Hotline Miami and keep losing. You can play Peglin. Not saying Peglin's easy, but it's that you can play with one hand, lean back in your chair, and just shoot your pachinko ball and try to get as far as you can. I wouldn't say the game is ridiculously hard because I have beaten runs a couple times, but you can always go back and unlock characters. You can you can go for like there's like a modifier called the Crucible, and in the Crucible there's like 10 levels for each character for your Crucible, so you can play with modifiers on to make it harder. So there is a lot to do in this like simple looking game. So that's why I put Peglin as my 10 out of 10, and it's not even a 1.0 yet. There's another.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're still working on it. There is which I'm like, I mean, the game is almost done. It just feels like they're doing updates once in a while with new items and stuff. Right. But the devs, Red Nexus Games, based out of Victoria, BC, actually, if I assume, on the island.
Oh, nice.
They say they're not done yet, but what are they saying? Yeah, like I just feel like I can always go back. It's super simple, lots to unlock. It's cute. Oh, there's another similar game called Roundball. No. Oh my gosh, I had it on the tip of my tongue. It's another pachinko roguelite, Round Ball or something. But that one I also like. Round Guard. Yes.
Nice.
And that one is similar, like fantasy themed kind of pachinko roguelite. For some reason, and I have a lot of hours in that as well. Maybe I have something about pachinko roguelikes.
I was gonna say it's the. I mean, it's funny that you say pachinko because for me these are Peggle likes. Right?
Peggle, okay, yeah, I did mention Peggle, but yes,
you did at the top of the show, and I was gonna say you had me at Peggle because man, I love Peggle, and watching the gameplay of both of these on Steam, I'm like, oh, this tickles something in me. Yes. I might need to check this out. I love a good Peggle.
Yeah, and now that Peggle is like not too around dormant anymore, like these games are definitely. Scratch that itch for me, so that's why Peglin, a small indie game locally made, is my 10 out of 10.
Nice, that's awesome. I like it.
Jordan, what's yours?
Well, 10 out of 10 is probably the hardest category to pick for me. I think generally speaking, I'm playing games I like, or I'm playing games I know I like, right? I do dabble in a lot of these other games, but usually I don't get very far if I'm not enjoying it, right? We only have so much time to spend on these games. So I've got a number of games listed here. There's a whole bunch of obvious ones. To shout some of them out, I mean, Portal 2.
Oh, yeah.
God of War 2018, like I said earlier. The original Last of Us. I think one game that I have to say that's obvious, and I have to say it for a couple of particular reasons that I want to make, is Elden Ring. Oh. And it's obviously it's the hot game right now. Like, everyone's in Shadow of the Erd Tree right now. And everyone knows it's a great game, and it's going to go down in history as one of the best games of all time, easily. I don't think there's any question about that. The big thing that sets it apart for me is in playing other games throughout my gaming history, there's often been this element of you meet a character in the game. You know, I do tend to lean towards story-based games. You meet a character in a game, and you can't help but think, man, wouldn't it be cool if I got to play as that character? And, you know, in a turn-based game, maybe they join your party, which is great. You do get to sort of control them. But the big one for me was always, and this is not my 10 out of 10 game, Kingdom Hearts. I'm a big Kingdom Hearts guy.
Okay.
And whenever I played Kingdom Hearts as a child, I would always think, man, Sora, the main character you play as, is cool. But what if I got to play as Riku, his badass friend, right?
Yeah.
That's what I always wanted. And the big thing that I really appreciate about Elden Ring is that almost any ability, weapon, move that an enemy or a boss does, there is some way to get a version of that move, if not the actual move or weapon or whatever. And the fact that they were able to put so much variety into the game, just in the sense that you encounter those, but then they went that one step further and also made it so, hey, you remember that dragon that threw red lightning bolts at you? Well, guess what? You can get an ability that lets you throw those red lightning bolts.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That to me really just kind of set Elden Ring apart. And I'd say I'm a Souls guy, but I'm also a make Souls games as easy as you possibly can guy. You know, I'll over level myself. I'll play the magic route or the sorcerer so that I can just ranged, blast spells at everyone. And, I try to make it as easy on myself. And if I'm having trouble with a boss, I'm just going to summon everybody and their mom to come help me with the fight and let them do the battle while I sit there casting my little spells from a distance and that kind of thing.
It's just Harry
I'm
Potter
there for the
run,
experience. Yeah. Exactly. I'm there for the experience and the cool stuff. And that is one of the coolest things I've ever seen, is how much freedom they give you with those abilities, those move sets, those weapons and everything. So I got to put that one on the table because Elden Ring absolutely goated. Cool. And I'm playing through Erd Tree right now, of course.
All right. Yeah,
but
that is a hot one.
The game I actually want to bring up is Persona 4 Golden.
Oh,
because
okay.
This is easily, in my mind, king of the JRPGs. Honestly, I haven't played a lot of JRPGs, but Persona 4 Golden sucked me in with its characters, with its personality, with its style. And I think one of the big factors behind all that was that it originally came out in the Golden version, Persona 4 Golden, on the PlayStation Vita. One of the best pieces of hardware to ever exist, to ever have been made by
I wish
Sony.
I owned one. But
oh my gosh,
I picked the 3DS because everyone's like, "Oh, Vita has no games."
So, I know. But it was, I think, in a large part, a big reason why I was able to get through that game was because it was on the Vita. And so I remember sitting in bed on a Saturday morning playing it. I remember riding the bus home from work and playing it. I remember riding the bus home from work, putting in my headphones, and literally just listening to the title menu music because it was so good. I also had one experience where I was riding the city bus home. I had my Vita out and I was going to play, and I was sitting next to a guy who looked over at me and he said, "Is that a PlayStation Vita?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Are you playing Persona 4 Golden?" Oh, wow. And I said, "Yes." And we spent the next 45 minutes on the bus ride just gushing with each other over how great this game is. And I don't think I've ever had an experience like that with a complete stranger, except for this game. So it is easily, a 10 out of 10 for me. I love everything about that game. I love the characters. I think if I turned on my Vita now, my wallpaper is still, one of those final pictures of the end of Persona 4 Golden, where you've got your whole crew together and they're all smiling and happy, of course, because you beat the game. And it's also one of the only games that when I beat it, I felt a level of sadness for having completed it, because it really did a lot to instill this feeling of, these are my friends. These are people I've built a relationship with. These are characters that I now love. And it ends. And you're like, well, what do I do now? and it really kind of left this feeling of emptiness in me, because I was like, oh my God, I really cared about these characters. So anyways.
Yeah.
That's my solid 10 out of 10. I mean, yeah, Elden Ring, that Persona 4 Gold.
That story, like, that transcends games. Like,
yeah,
firstly meeting someone who is playing the same game as you and striking up a conversation, and then like having that feeling of, I don't even know what you call it, but I know what you're talking about, like that feeling of like, oh man, I just lost a friend, like I'm sad it's over. Yeah, that's like it's like yeah, I wonder what that word is. I'm sure there's a word for it. But yeah, cool.
I don't know. I can it was special. Like everything about that game is special. That's the best I can put it.
I need to somehow build the patience to play a JRPG. That is my life goal. And it's I don't know, like I've tried Persona 5 Royal many times, but it needs to be on a portable console. Yeah.
Golden is probably one of the only ones that I have played from start to finish. I went for the platinum, but it's a day-based game, so you start on day 1 and then sometimes it skips days and goes to whatever day 14, but it like does the calendar year, right? So sometimes it skips an entire month and you're like, oh crap, now I
like actual
lost 30 days I thought I had. It's not an actual day-night cycle, but it's like you start and in a day you can do a certain amount of things, and then you have to eventually run out of things to do. You have to go to bed, and then it rolls over and says Saturday or July 18th or whatever. So yeah, but special, that's for sure.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah.
1 out of 10. This is going to get controversial.
Oh boy, not from my
side.
Yeah,
my ahead. 1 out of 10 is a little game called Elden Ring.
Oh my god, there's no way.
Hear me out.
Oh my god, you're doing this.
No, I'm serious. Okay, I tried to play this game.
I thought you were joking.
At least 5 times.
Oh my god.
And I think I nailed down why I can't get into it. And is it
because you hate fun?
It's that. Well, that's the thing. Like, for some reason,
fun.
I have a pretty high disgust tolerance, right? Like, I've worked with kids, and they've done gross stuff. I've done my fair share of cleaning up poop from bathroom stalls, so I would say I have a decent tolerance for that stuff. But something about Elden Ring, stepping out into the world, and all you see are like swamps and dead trees and like dying things, skeletons and hands in water splashing around. Something about that just like really? I don't want to go there. I don't want to. I don't want to. It's like, oh, you just have to explore north, and I go there and there's a starving dog. I don't want to explore that.
Yeah, there are those.
Not to mention, and my second gripe, and you mentioned it, it's hard.
yeah.
I'm tired from work. I don't want to figure out what this ugly troll is gonna do. Other than that, I get why it's good. Like, I know people like to challenge, and I said I like hard games too. I love competitive shooters. I love the challenge, but there's something about, maybe it's the art style, which is kind of disrespectful to the people that work so hard to make these characters. It's such a beautiful
game too.
Yeah, and it's like the most beautiful looking, disgusting stuff. And Elden Ring is a 1 out of 10.
That is true.
Yeah. It's a 1 out of 10 for me because I can't get over the fact that I don't want to explore anything and it looks like it smells in Elden Ring.
I'll be honest. I obviously I couldn't disagree with you more.
you thought God of War Ragnarok was bad.
Yeah. At the same time, I totally understand where you're coming from, because From Software has the grotesque, just, I don't know, abomination design down like no other company. And I mean, you think Elden Ring is bad, like look at Bloodborne.
True.
They've got some particularly gruesome stuff in their catalog. So I get it from that angle. Yeah. I
It's okay. You can cook me on this one. I know this is a controversial one. And I'm not rage baiting or anything. Okay, guys. I just alienated half our audience.
No, and that's the thing, right? Is I think, like I said, the general consensus obviously behind Elden Ring is, again, it's going to go down in history as one of the, greatest games of all time. But that doesn't mean that everyone needs to like it. And I mean, like, for myself, I do think that, I put, I think, 140 hours into the base game, and I've probably put maybe 60 into Shadow of the Erd Tree, which just dropped, a few weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago at this point. But if I couldn't play it how I wanted to, I don't think I would have got the DLC. I don't think I would have gotten anywhere near those hours, because I know how I was, and this kind of ties back into real life. I remember when I played Bloodborne, and Bloodborne is what made me kind of fall in love with these games. And at the time, I believe I was married, but for all intents and purposes, I didn't have much going on in my life. I had work, I had my wife, but like I had a lot of spare time to just come home, play games, and I would pound away at Bloodborne for hours and hours and bash my head against a wall and finally succeed and all this stuff. And nowadays, Elden Ring comes out. I have a small child. If I want to spend a couple hours playing a game, I'm doing it late at night because that's the only time I can. And then I'm going to be tired the next day and everything like that. And so when it came to Elden Ring, I very much was like, how do I easy mode this game? And yeah, I'm watching the YouTube videos about, hey, here's how to make an OP sorcerer build. Here's how to make a build where you just won't get hit. And that's essentially how I played the main game. And, you know, using summons, using all these things that people say, oh, that's not how you actually play the game, or that's, you know, that's, you cheated to beat the game and everything. And I'm better than you because I did a full melee strength build.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, again, I played Bloodborne. I could do that if I wanted to. I don't want to. If I do that, I'm not going to experience as much of the game as I want to. And I want to explore this world. I want to see what they've created. I want to see those grotesque, you know, dog monsters with their dripping wet skeleton arms coming out of their butt and all this kind of stuff, right? I want to get that experience, and this is how I'm going to do it. So, you know, I'll play it my way, kind of thing.
And that's huge kudos to the team for designing a game that can be played in multiple ways. Like,
totally.
What is it? When I worked at camp, we had a saying called challenge by choice, where you can still take part in the challenge and you can kind of make it whatever challenge you want it to be. Like, you want to climb all the way to the top of the rock wall, you can. If your goal is halfway or even just hold on to the wall, that's a valid challenge. So
nice.
So
I like that.
That sounds like it. They just got to make an easy mode for me and make everything cartoony.
I'm telling you, it's the sorcerer build, but
maybe.
But even still, the game is always punishing, right? Even if you're playing it with an easier build, one guy sneaks up on you, or the wrong guy sneaks up on you, gets too close. Some guys teleport. You're walking up to someone charging your spell, and then all of a sudden they're right in your face and they chop you down, right? So, you know,
by design, it's supposed to be challenging. Cool.
Yep.
Jordan, our last game topic of the day. What is your 1 out of 10?
This one will be relatively quick because I almost guarantee you haven't played it. And it's a 1 out of 10, which to me, I really struggled picking a 1 out of 10 because to me, this is an abysmal game. This is a game that I'm probably never going to touch. But obviously I did. And I have my wonderful small child to credit for that, because a while back I got sucked into I wish I could remember which tier it was, but whatever tier of PlayStation Plus gives you access to a whole bunch of free games.
Okay.
And upon doing so, you know, I'd be bored and, hey, you want to play a game? Let's find a game we can play. And I've played many Paw Patrol games. I've played My Little Pony games. And you know what? I wouldn't even put those at a 1. Would put those at, you know, probably like a 4. Like, yeah, they're games. I'm sure she'll remember them when she grows up as being awesome. Then she'll play them when she's older and be like, wow, this game kind of sucks. I'll be like, but it was better than the game I will put at my 1 out of 10, which is a game called Pile Up Box by Box.
Pile Up Box by Box.
That's right. Pile Up ! Box by Box.
Okay.
Now this is essentially, it's by a studio called Seed by Seed, which I didn't look into. I just looked up their name. It's essentially, you play as a cube, and it's a world that you jump around and solve pretty basic cube puzzles. There's a lot of like, you know, push this switch to open this gate, but then you step off the switch and the gate closes, and turns out I have to push another cube onto that switch. Then I can go through this. And in a lot of ways, it felt like it was maybe like a project that someone made to kind of build a pseudo open world, because it was open world-esque, maybe hub world or open zone, if you will, right? So you kind of explore around as this cube, you jump on another cube to get higher, and now you can jump up to the higher ledge. You push around a cube, and it, like I say, triggers a pressure pad that opens a door. And you do eventually get into some more complicated things. But man, it was just a slog. Like, it was just like, I get why, you know, my kid was drawn to it because it's bright pink and purple and blue cubes, and they have a little face, and I think you could wear a hat maybe. But like, I just had very little desire to ever see this again. So Anyways,
Yeah,
I'm also like talking in like kind of hushed voice because like my kid's back there, and I'm like, I don't want to remind her of this game, and I don't want her to like sneak up and be like, hey, can we play
Hey,
that game
Dad,
again? And I'm like,
do you remember that?
no, I deleted it. But anyways, I mean, I could always get it back.
I'm looking at
But
it
yeah.
now. It's got an interesting art style. It's like Paper Mario kind of.
No, they're just cubes, man. Like you might think that, but like again, it's colorful. I'll
true.
give it that. But yeah, it just actually when it came to actually playing it, I was just like, oh, dude, I can't do this. It's just cubing around, you know.
Very, very basic kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I hope we gave our audience an idea of what the heck our tastes are by doing this little experiment. That was a really fun game and idea that you brought up, Jordan. As we close out our show, I don't actually have much of a way to close out the show, actually. I just think that we'll reiterate this is the Grow Up, Level Up Gamers Club. We are two folks that just want to talk about games every week and give you a recommendation. This week's recommendation was Concord, as well as CLICKOLDING and Reforce. Links to those games in the description below if you are inclined to check those out. If you disagree with our 1 out of 10, 5 out of 10, and 10 out of 10s, and I don't know how you could disagree with my 1 out of 10, to be honest, leave us a comment below or comment and message us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, if we're on there, and let me know what you think. And maybe we'll read about it in next week's episode. Speaking of episodes, we will hopefully be posting these every Friday. Get them to share a game, or get us to share a game for you going into the weekend. So make sure that you are subscribed, followed, whatever you're listening on or listening to. Hit that follow, give us a rating, Spotify, YouTube, all that good stuff. And we'll keep putting out game recommendations for folks like you who I assume work 9 to 5 and only have an hour or two a night to play video games. And if you don't fit that niche, you are welcome to take our recommendations anyways. Don't worry. Jordan, if folks want to connect with you and maybe check out your other podcast, how can people do that?
Honestly, I'm not too active on it, but follow me on Twitter at SirDRJM, at SirDrJM. That's probably the best sort of public-facing place that I have. I'm on Instagram. I'm on everything at SirDRJM, but I'd go to that one if things go anywhere, then I'll probably put them on there. So if you are curious in listening to the back catalog of One Man Watchpoint, my Overwatch podcast, you can just search for One Man Watchpoint on podcast services everywhere. But I have not recorded an episode in a few months because I've kind of just fallen off of Overwatch. Both the Overwatch Champion Series. I always want to call it the Overwatch World Champion Series because it's OWCS. But the OW, of course, is Overwatch. So. Anyways, I've fallen off of that, but here I am to rise up again.
Yeah, that's maybe we'll go into a little history of how we met in a future episode.
Fair enough.
Because that's always a fun story to tell. If you want to connect with me, my name is Samson. You can find me online at SamsonXP on pretty much everything. And then just shoot me a message. My DMs are open. I'm always happy to chat and meet new folks, especially folks who have a shared passion of video games. So find me at SamsonXP on all the socials. You can also find this podcast on Grow Up, Level Up. And hopefully we'll have this up on YouTube consistently and on Spotify and podcasts consistently. But if you've gotten this far and gotten to the end, please comment a emoji in the description. Which emoji? I'll let you choose since it's episode 1. Thank you so much for tuning in to the first episode of Grow Up, Level Up Gamers Club, and we'll see you next week.